afternoon, everybody. Great to be with you and great to be back for, in my case, the third Florence Hartsville combined Grassroots tour. You all turn out one of the most vibrant groups every year. I really appreciate you taking the time. We'll talk a little bit more about the significance of that in just a second. But Howard, thank you for being here. And Howard, you all need to know, is not only a former Business Person of the Year of the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, but Howard has agreed to be the chair of the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce in the 2025-2026 year. Third generation family leadership, Sunoco leadership of the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. Howard, thank you for your willingness to serve in that role. I don't know where Murphy went. Murphy, you all need to know, is behind me. Murphy is not only a member of our board of directors, she chairs our local chambers committee, and appreciate Murphy's leadership. Mike Miller is a great partner from Florence. Mike, appreciate your leadership. Have a couple of folks from our team who are with us who are, what do we call someone from the PD? PDites? PD? Hannah Hopewell from our team. Hannah is from Florence. Some of you know her father's an attorney in Florence, and we're delighted to have her as a member of our team. And Hartsville's own Susie Moyd. Susie, yeah, hear it for Susie. We walked from Roosters here, and I think about 6 of you stopped to roll down the window and say, "Hey, Susie, how you doing?" And Susie said, "Bob, I said, is there a men's shop? Is there a men's shop somewhere near here?" And she said, "Oh, you've got to meet Hattie. Come on." And I'm wearing one of Hattie's ties, and there's more stuff in the car. He insisted that I drink a shot of bourbon with him. I did not. I said, "I have to make a presentation." He said, "It will be better if you take a shot." I said, "Hattie, I have a long day after that." He said, "It will be better if you'll take the shot." So, but Susie, while she's a part of our team, still promoting Hartsville, right? And downtown development in Hartsville. And so just really delighted to be here for our 2023 Grassroots Tour. And we'll tell you what this is about, and then very quickly going to ask you to pull out your cell phones, and we're going to create an interactive dialogue around issues that are facing the state of South Carolina. First, I need to give a shout out to Blue Cross Blue Shield, our presenting sponsor. Blue Cross is a great partner to your chambers, a great partner to the state chambers. We have insurance products through them for large companies. We have a new product for companies from 2 to 50 employees. If you have any interest in that, Steve Padgett was not able to stick around, but talk to any of us, and we'll be glad to put you in touch with Steve to explore more what the opportunities are for you there. Quickly, the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, our vision is that South Carolina's economy is the most vibrant in the United States, creating opportunity and prosperity for all. Our mission is simply to be the leading voice for business in the state, and we do that in 4 ways. We promote free enterprise. We convene the business community around issues. We partner with our local chambers and other business associations, and we define and advocate the pro-business agenda in the State House in every legislative session. And that, in fact, is our purpose here today, to engage you all, included with 1,000 business people across South Carolina by the time we're finished, creating a collective voice around the different issues that we're about to talk about. What happens when this exercise is over? Folks, we get calls from the speaker's office asking, "What are you hearing on the Grassroots Tour? Can you share your data with us?" We share it informally during the tour, August, September, and October. We'll share it more formally and publish it with our members, but more importantly with policymakers. And so what you're doing is not just a fun exercise here at lunch. It's an important part of the collective voice of the business community and what messages we're sending to our policymakers in the state capitol. To build our agenda, we start with the Grassroots Tour, again, August, September, and October. We have a membership survey. We have policy committees. I wonder if we can pull this. I'm probably going to, okay. Any way we can raise the projector, Murphy? Okay. We'll see if that doesn't catch us up here. Ultimately, our board of directors in November will approve an agenda, probably not unlike your processes. And here you can see that last evening we were in North Myrtle Beach. We were in Darlington this morning. We're here today. We've got 4 or 5 other stops yet to make, and a couple others yet to be scheduled. And so at this point, please do. When was the last time you heard a speaker ask you to pull out your cell phones, right? Pull out your cell phones. At your table, you have a QR code in a picture frame. And if you'll take a snapshot of that QR code, it will bring you to the presentation. If you would rather go to the website, you can see it here, www.menti.com, and there is a code that you can enter. And down here in the bottom right-hand corner, for those of you who can see it, we can count that 12 of you are signed up, and we'll end up with a much larger number, of course. And if you're having any trouble, I might ask Hannah or Susie to just raise your hand and be available to help you with that. Murphy, what do you think we have in the room? How many? 91, okay. We're about halfway there. We're about halfway there. Well, it looks, I don't see many empty seats. All right, we got 49 of you. You need a little more time? Need a little more time? We ought to be able to grow that number a bit. We're up to 50. All right, we're stuck on 52. I'm thinking we may have a few more. Anybody need help? I need help. We ready to go forward? All right, well, let's start. We've got a real hard question to get started. What is your favorite type of barbecue sauce? Mustard-based, vinegar-based, tomato-based, Alabama white sauce, or other? Maybe a little McLeod's peach sauce? Huh? No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Folks, I have to tell you, most everywhere in South Carolina, mustard-based is the preference. The closer you get to the North Carolina border, vinegar tends to be. North Myrtle Beach, Darlington this morning, that is not the case as you get further away from the North Carolina border. And of course, barbecue sauce are fighting words for folks, right? In both of our states. A little more serious question. How would you rate the United States overall economy? Excellent, good, bad, or unsure? Whoa, a lot of pessimism in the room. Huh? A lot of pessimism. We're up to 58. Let's see if we can't get a couple more votes and get to 60. 59, all right, 61. That's our biggest number yet. How do you feel about the economy today compared to this time last year? Much better than, about the same, worse than, or much worse than? And about the same, but worse than. We're sitting here, maybe a government shutdown on Friday. We've got the UAW strike. A lot of pessimism about the economy in the U.S. How would you rate South Carolina's overall economy? Look at that. Do we feel good about doing business in South Carolina? Yeah. This is very consistent. We're getting about 80% folks who feel really good about doing business in South Carolina. What are the biggest challenges facing your business or organization today? Please rank them below in order from the most challenging to the least. This will take you a little bit longer. Inflation, lack of workers, supply chain disruptions, burdensome federal and state regulations, other, or rising interest rates. Less than half of you in. Inflation, lack of workers, and rising interest rates are leading the pack. A year ago, inflation was coming in second, even third or fourth. Clearly, it's more of an issue this year than it was last year. Lack of workers consistently either first or second. Last year, it was almost always first. This year, again, that and inflation. Anybody answer other? Care to share what other issue might be your biggest challenge? I asked this question early on, I won't tell you where, and someone shouted out, corporate greed at a Chamber of Commerce presentation. I was surprised to hear that. What is the biggest drag on your business's earning potential? State and local tax burdens, insurance costs, health, liability, property insurance, regulatory compliance costs, worker wages and benefits, fixed costs, rent, energy, equipment, materials. Worker wages and benefits, which of course contributes to the inflationary issue, right? Fixed cost, which seems to reflect inflation as an issue, and then insurance costs. We're going to talk more about insurance here shortly, but clearly the cost of labor is a major challenge and drag. We like to do a little educating along with getting your input. Let's talk about workforce for a second. South Carolina has a labor force participation rate of, it actually ticked up last month to 57%, which is a good step in the right direction, but that's still well less than the national average of 62%, meaning we have 80,000 jobs that are going unfilled in the state of South Carolina. Imagine if you could fill half of those jobs, the economic impact that it would have. How do we address that? Did you know that in times of low unemployment, individuals in South Carolina can receive unemployment benefits for longer than any other state in the Southeast? Many of the states around us have begun to index the unemployment duration. The lower the unemployment rate, the shorter the duration of benefits, and vice versa. That's a subject that I suspect we'll see addressed in the 2024 legislative session. What's keeping people on the sidelines? Low wages, health, gaps in employment history. Come down to number 7, lack of child care. We are hearing more and more about child care. We're hearing it from the federal level, hearing it at the state level. Y'all are hearing it at the local level. We've got a couple of other questions that we'll get at that subject here in just a minute. Is your business or organization struggling to hire and retain qualified workers? And running just about, not quite well, about 2 to 1. Confirming what we already know, right? That workforce is a major challenge. Rank the below solutions to get individuals off the sidelines and back to work. Invest in public transportation, particularly in rural areas. Incentivize employers to offer on-site child care services. Increase wages. Reduce the duration of unemployment benefits. Reduce barriers to employment for individuals with a criminal history or other. You all are starting to get really good and fast at the rankings. About 2/3 of you in. Reduce the duration of unemployment benefits, knocking around with increased wages and benefits. Invest in public transportation. That's interesting. We haven't seen that one rating as highly as 3rd in many other places. Is that anything unique about the PD area and transportation for workforce? Anybody care to observe? Gotcha. Thank you.
It's always good to call someone out. We have Don Strickland. That's over the PD Rural Transportation. Don, tell us something.
He does great things in here.
A lot of good things.
So yeah, I am surprised myself with this group today, but I'm thankful that we're a rural public transportation authority, and I'm telling my group roughly 500,000 trips a year. Of that, those trips, 44% are. So there is a great need for us to be able to connect counties outside of our, small urbans and, Hartsville and Darlington to be able to get folks to and from work. I think it's well for industries, and we're doing a lot more of that now. So excited to be able to pull more of that, play in the.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, I have family in Venice,ville that someone's working in Wallace and they don't drive, so they're taking public transportation. And just driving to Wallace from Venice,ville is an hour and a half. So if you're on the bus, that must be a 2 or 3 hour ride, right? So that's 4 to 6 hours back and forth each day, right? I also have a friend in Newbury that started a nonprofit, and her baseline was giving work. They couldn't afford to work. People who go to school, they just didn't have the means to
Yeah.
their classes.
Yeah.
And she's doing it either for free or for what they can afford. And growing on that, she's about to start a community garden and also a community.
Nice.
And she's not funded. She's doing it on her own.
Yeah, nice. Nice. Thank you for the extra look at that. A lot of people think apprenticeship programs are a key part of the answer. Formal apprenticeship programs. Does your company or organization offer apprenticeship programs? Largely through the state. A significant number of you do. About half of you do not. If you answered no, why is that? Not aware of eligible programs, current incentives are not high enough, too costly and time consuming, liability concerns, lack of quality apprentices, or not necessary in my field. And no real standout, too costly or time consuming. We hear anecdotally companies that try it get very frustrated with the red tape. They get frustrated with the cost. They find it easier to pay a couple extra dollars an hour to hire interns. And I would suggest, Murphy and Mike, as you're talking to your legislative delegations, the state is trying here, but they're not really connecting in a meaningful way, and anything to improve the apprenticeship programs and make them a little more flexible, get rid of some of the red tape that goes with them, could be helpful. Would your business or organization be interested in a reimbursement from the state for providing employees with credit for child care? This is a bit of a trick question. There is already a tax credit for child care. There are 19 companies in the state of South Carolina that use it. If you're a large company, you don't need the tax credit. You've got your fee in lieu of taxes. If you're a small company, you're probably not aware of it. Suspect we'll see action on this subject in the legislature in 2024. Could be as simple as putting some marketing dollars behind marketing the tax credit that's already there. But this subject really is the triple whammy. There's the cost of child care, which for many is prohibitive. There is lack of capacity. And then we learned in Hilton Head last week of a child care center that has capacity for an additional 100 children. They can't find the teachers to come in. So we're right back to the workforce challenge, right? And now there's federal relief money that's about to run out. And they say that as bad as it's been, it's going to turn into crisis mode over child care. Strong support here for that. Let's talk about red tape for a second. South Carolina has the 15th most burdensome licensing laws in the country. About 1 out of 5 occupations require a professional license. Talk about environmental issues. More and more environmental permits are being delayed due to excess interference by citizen groups, hitting businesses with unnecessary and costly delays. Should individuals moving to South Carolina from another state be automatically granted the same license they had in the other states? Yes. Yes, but only if they pass background checks and pay a license fee. Yes, but only for non-health related professions. No, but the process should be expedited, or simply no. And you all seem to be open to the idea that folks should be able to carry credentials with them, still go through a licensing process still pay a fee, but one of the ways to perhaps put more people to work sooner as a state with tremendous in-migration population growth. Should environmental groups, activists be able to use the legal system to hold up permits for years if they disagree with an agency's decision? There are no take. Well, we have one person who says yes. No, but environmental concerns should be considered when permitting. The responsible answer to allow economic development and growth, but to be responsible about it. And some of you just know altogether. South Carolina, I can tell you, as someone who spent most of his career in North Carolina, we envied South Carolina's regulatory process. You all are able to move permits much faster than North Carolina. And from a South Carolina Chamber of Commerce perspective, we think that's something worth fighting for to preserve going forward. Talking about economic competitiveness, what a year South Carolina had just last year. Kudos to the governor, the Department of Commerce, over $10 billion, a record year in new capital investment, 14,000 new jobs. It's Envision in Florence, it's Redwood in Berkeley County, it's BMW adding a new EV line in the upstate, it's all the lithium processing and recycling and battery assembly that's taking place. It's Volkswagen Scout right north of Columbia in Blythewood, $2 billion investment, 4,000 jobs. South Carolina is at the ground level of the electrification of the automotive sector, and we hear that that there's some more good announcements coming this year that will be comparable. You've got to move product in and around the state and through the state. Infrastructure is very important. How are we going to fund that infrastructure? You may know that a $1 billion gas tax increase was approved in 2016, fully implemented in 2022. We are still amongst the lowest states for gas tax in the country, and yet we now have, because of the gas tax and because of some of the federal relief dollars and the infrastructure dollars from Washington, we have billions of extra money to help speed up I-26, I-20, I-95, the malfunction junction just to the west of Columbia and Lexington County are all being accelerated. At the same time, as more of us are driving electric vehicles, South Carolina has one of the lowest electric vehicle fees amongst those in the Southeast. But for Florida, which doesn't have one, we have $120 every 2 years. Every 2 years, Florida is getting ready to enact something. I don't know whether there'll be more or less than us, but electric vehicles actually weigh more than non-electric vehicles on the road. And so the wear and tear is there, the decline in the gas tax is there, which would lead us to ask you the question, two questions. Would you support another gas tax increase if it would accelerate interstate widening projects? And decently solid support for a gas tax. There's no free lunch, right? And well, maybe today. Was today free, Murphy? Was today free? It's free for me. Thank you very much. Yeah. This has been a mixed bag around the state. Some communities have been opposed. I think overall, if we look at the aggregate, it's probably more slightly in support than not. Should South Carolina increase its electric vehicle fee to attract more infrastructure dollars from that sector? And that appears to be a simple question of fairness, right? As more and more electric vehicles are using our roads. Which of the below do you believe is the biggest long-term threat to South Carolina's economic competitiveness? Roads and infrastructure, K through 12 education. I'm struggling to read. Availability of affordable housing, labor force participation, plaintiff-friendly legal system, or environmental regulatory issues, or high taxes. That's pretty dramatic there, isn't it? K through 12 education. A lot of those other issues are more directly relevant to businesses, and yet we all understand that we're not where we want to be from a K through 12 education quality. We talk a lot at the South Carolina Chamber about tax reform, tax modernization. You probably know that last year the General Assembly passed the largest tax cut in state history reducing the individual income tax rate from 7% to 6.5%, with a phased-in reduction to 6% over 5 years. They had the money to accelerate that phase down last year from 6.5 to 6.4. We still have the highest marginal individual income tax rate in the Southeast. Now, that's a tricky one. If there are any accountants in the room, it is the highest published rate. It is not the highest effective rate. If you're paying that published rate, you need a new accountant. And the issue is sticker shock for that family from Michigan or Ohio, and they're looking at the Southeast, and they Google tax rates, and they see that 6.5% versus North Carolina down at 2 or 3%, or Georgia, same thing, and it may cause them to look elsewhere. In fact, our effective rate is very competitive with the others, but that's part of the reason to try to bring this down. And did you know that South Carolina is still the only state in the country that exempts primary homeowners from property taxes for school operating costs, the dreaded Act 388 that's now embedded in the Constitution? Should the General Assembly go ahead and spend $425 million needed to further accelerate the income tax cut from 6.4% to 6.0%? Yes, yes, and we should cut taxes even more. No, or unsure. And there's an appetite here for going ahead and cutting, significant appetite for cutting further. I will tell you, I don't know that that's going to happen, and here's why. The last 2 years, the state has been flush with billions more in revenue than projected. Billions more because of the federal relief money, because the economy has performed through COVID so much better than it was projected to perform. It doesn't look to be the case this year. There's a pretty conservative view. They're going to have a surplus, but it may not be enough to cover the entire 425, along with other priorities such as a bridge program that the DOT will be talking about, and other demands on the budget. One option to decrease tax burdens on businesses and individuals would be to broaden the sales tax base. Would you support a sales tax on services? Yes, tax all services. Yes, but only luxury services. Yes, but only some services, and lower the rate. No, but lower the rate, or unsure. Sales tax on services. And if you combine the first two, bit of a mixed bag here. Thank you very much. He can see. All right, how do we interpret this? This is yes, tax all services. Yes, but only luxury services. So with a qualification. Yes, but only some services, and lower the rate. So not outright opposition to broadening the sales tax further. Would you support creating a more equitable property tax formula that requires all property owners to pay for schools? Again, addressing Act 388. What happens in our high growth areas, residential property owners do not pay for our public schools. The burden gets placed largely on business. If you're in a county with a lot of economic development, you have a lot of businesses, rental income gets taxed at commercial rates. If you're a county, perhaps Marlboro, perhaps some of the folks down in the low country, you don't have industry to speak of to help pay for it. And so the funding of public education goes unaddressed. And here it looks like there's support for, again, the fairness of it. I will tell you, there is not a person in the State House who will defend Act 388. Not a person. At the same time, there's not a person in the State House who wants to do anything about it because it's just politically dead on arrival. And so whether it's broadening the sales tax or finding some other workaround, that's what it's going to take if we're going to be able to address that subject. Quality of life. South Carolina ranks 40th nationwide in K through 12 public education. In 2022, we started the school year with 1,400 vacant teaching positions. Some people think allowing business people mid-career into the classrooms is part of the answer. South Carolina recently ranked 37th in overall healthcare performance, 39th in access and affordability, 41st in healthy outcomes. Would you allow employees 1 to 2 hours of PTO time a week to go into classrooms and to read to students? Hannah, Rutrow. The projector will be turned off, and that's for the projector. Okay, some number said yes. The majority. We don't have big of a majority, but you like the idea. And let me tell you, we'll share this information with Ellen Weaver at the Department of Education, and Murphy and Mike try to create some further conversation around that. Just tap dance for a while. I didn't wear my tap shoes. Darn. Hottie's probably got a pair for me down the street. Right? Hattie. All right, I don't know if you can follow this on your phones. The next slide, should South Carolina make it easier for mid-career professionals to go into teaching by reducing certification requirements or offering credits for experience? And you can see the different options. Yes, anything to attract more professionals. Yes, but only credits for years of experience. No teacher should be treated, non-teachers should be treated the same as teachers. And the issue of yes, anything to attract more professionals is leading by far. And then yes, but only credits for years of experience. So the room is very open to the idea of allowing non-teachers into the classroom. Rank the below solutions on their ability to improve health outcomes in South Carolina. I'm going to hope you all are able to read the fine print on your phones. Was it on like an hour timer or something?
Oh, here we go. Okay, Carol.
Okay, here we go. Let's hear from Murphy. Great tech support. And about half the room in, offer more attractive healthcare options to small businesses. Did I mention Blue Cross Blue Shield earlier? Would love to again connect any of us, Steve Paget. Expand access to telehealth and make it easier for individuals to receive virtual care. You all see that Clemson University got a $22 million grant recently to study how AI can help deliver healthcare into rural areas more effectively. Be interesting to see the results of that study. Let's talk about lawsuit reform for a minute. Current South Carolina law can leave a defendant on the hook for all damages in a lawsuit, regardless of their percentage of fault. This is what's known as joint and several liability. This has resulted in plaintiffs suing the deepest pocket for 100% of the claim, rather than all defendants for their share of the fault. There's a case, we're all familiar with it, down in the Low Country. A convenience store sold beer to an underage person who had a fake ID at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a series of events, and at 2 a.m. the next morning, a tragedy occurred and a young woman lost her life. People in the chain of events after the convenience store pled out. Their insurance companies paid whatever their max coverage was, they were out. That left the convenience store in a situation where, had they gone to jury, they might have been found responsible for 5% of the liability, but they might have been held 100% liable for the total damages, which is why Parker's convenience store wrote a $15 million check just to make that problem go away. That is an issue not just for those who sell alcohol, but it's for corporations who incur liability as a part of doing businesses. Many small businesses are now either faced with skyrocketing insurance premiums or unable to find coverage at all. Anybody operate a restaurant that sells alcohol? Any bars or restaurants? Talk to your friends who do. Their increases are like 400% if they can find coverage. and bars and restaurants around the state are starting to close. There will be an effort to address that issue. That's going to be a little problematic for us. We have a bill that's in the Senate. It's bottled up in the Senate Judiciary Committee that would address joint and several for everybody. Those who sell alcohol, corporations, trucking companies, for everybody. We're not sure we're going to be able to get that bill out. There is growing momentum to address just the alcohol piece of that. And if we don't do that, your Walmarts of the world are going to be able to self-insure, and other insurance companies are going to say, we're just not going to underwrite business in South Carolina. Would also ask you if you know that small businesses across the country are being targeted with junk litigation claims that their websites are not ADA compliant, and they're being pressured to settle for thousands of dollars. Nuisance lawsuits, we're seeing it in Georgia and Tennessee, New York law firms. Do you know whether your website is ADA compliant? Let me suggest you go back to the office, talk to your tech person, call your vendor, whoever does your website. It is a very simple solution. It's an add-on. It's an icon you put up top. You click. You're colorblind, you're blind, you're deaf, you have disabilities, and it makes you ADA compliant accordingly. It's not very expensive, but save yourself the trouble of getting that letter from somebody who wants to hit you up for a couple $1,000 and go ahead and preempt it by getting in front of it. Should South Carolina lawyers be able to advertise settlements and verdicts? Yes, but only the amount the client received, not the total. No, we have too much legal advertising, or unsure. My wife and I watch the 6 o'clock news. We want to go hop in the car and get hit. It looks like we could win the lottery if we do that. Let me also observe, I've lived in South Carolina now for 2.5 years, having moved from North Carolina. Every one of my cost of living variables went down except the cost of insurance. I'm paying about twice in insurance here that I was in North Carolina. And you all think we have way too much legal advertising. Not a lot of trial lawyers in the crowd here today, obviously. Should a business only be responsible for paying damages equivalent to their share of fault in civil lawsuits? Back to the joint and several liability question. 47, 51 to nothing. Wow, when do you ever get 51 people in a room to agree on anything? 56. Basic question of fairness, right? I mean, it just seems like the fair thing to do. Has your business or organization been targeted in a lawsuit for non-ADA compliance? Anybody who says yes, would you care to share your experience? I'm told realtors are targeted across the country. I'm told car dealers have been targeted across the country. Nonprofits have been targeted. Most of you have not, but again, would encourage you to go back and check and just make sure that you're compliant and save yourself the hassle. The South Carolina Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors has recently approved a strategic plan, which is a 7-year blueprint for things we'd like to see happen in South Carolina between now and 2023. 3 external goals: a competitive business environment, flourishing talent pipeline, vibrant quality of life. In order to create a more competitive business environment long-term, which of the below should be the highest priority? Reducing current property tax rankings, modernizing and simplifying our tax structure, or improving our current legal climate ranking? Pretty consistent here that either of the 2 tax issues tend to come in first and second. Modernizing and simplifying tends to come to be the top priority most everywhere we've been so far. In order to establish a flourishing and resilient talent pipeline in South Carolina, which of the below should be the highest priority? Align workforce education and training with the needs of businesses, support efforts to improve K-12 public education, or increase South Carolina's labor force participation rate from the current 57% to 60% by addressing transportation, child care, criminal history, etc. I would observe that if the legislative session earlier this year had one theme to it, it was workforce development. And the Speaker of the House took the lead in passing a bill that, among other things, takes the 12 different agencies that offer support for workforce and puts them under the umbrella of the Department of Employment and Workforce for the first time. The state of South Carolina offers great resources around workforce issues. Most business people are not aware of what those resources are. And Mike and Murphy, I think it's a great opportunity. DO is now ready to go on the road and do road shows to bring those resources to you all and to your other members, and would encourage you to invite them to be a part of a program at some point in the future, because they have a good story to tell. And if they're going to need more legislation, the legislature is prepared to do that in 2024. Long term, what should be the top priority? To establish a more vibrant quality of life in South Carolina, ensuring that all households have broadband or access to affordable health care, improving the state's household income rank, or improving the state's average wage and salary rank. And again, pretty consistent here. The two tax issues tend to lead the way. There we go. All are important, right? But the tax issue and jobs, good paying jobs, we want to continue to be competitive from an economic development perspective, right? To continue to attract the jobs coming to the Southeast to get our fair share. Okay, we're about to wrap up here, but a couple of different plugs. One of the ways you can really stay informed with what's happening in the business community across the state, it costs you nothing to go to our website and to sign up to receive 3 things to know. This is something that our team started when COVID first hit. It's a couple of teaser headlines every Friday morning, mid-morning, in an email. It's a sentence or two, and there's a link if you want more information. Just a really valuable way to, again, stay in touch with key issues facing the business community across the Palmetto State. We also have something on our website, participate in the Palmetto Business Barometer. This is a monthly opportunity for you to tell us what you're seeing and hearing in your business. Data that, again, we share on a regular basis with policymakers in the State House. We get about 500 companies right now a month who are participating in this, and would invite you to be a part of that voice as well. You all don't need our help contacting your legislators, but I do encourage all of you, know who they are, communicate with them frequently. We've got a great lobbying team at the state chamber. Our lobbyists are very effective. They don't compare to when any one of you in this room will pick up the phone, call a member of the House, call a member of the Senate. Whether you're advocating a particular bill or not, just let them know what's happening in your business, what your concerns are, what the opportunities are. They want to hear from you, and they want to hear from you frequently. They tell us that all the time, and would encourage you to do so. Finally, before I invite you to join the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, kudos to all of you for belonging to your local chamber. I spent about 30 years working for a local chamber myself, and I like to say you've got to join the local chamber first. That's where you most get involved, Howard, to make a difference in the community. Then you can make a difference in the region. And if your perspective is statewide, we'd love to have you as part of the 800 member companies plus who make up the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. All right, one final question. Congress has recently held hearings on the existence of UFOs. Should the legislature establish a UFO ad hoc committee to review sightings in South Carolina?
Absolutely.
In North Myrtle Beach, it was all about the Chinese weather balloons, don't you know? And you all, by a slight majority, think Congress may have more priorities than just that. But anybody been to Bowman, South Carolina? At the corner of I-26 and I-95, there is an alien welcome center. Look it up. It's in Wikipedia. And you ought to go see it. It's a pile of sticks. You ought to go see it before it falls down or sets on fire. But fun question to end on. Thank you again for your participation. Your voice now is part of what ultimately will be over 1,000 business people across